Hello, Ruth McDonnell.
Hello, Diana, fellow Irish woman. Lovely to connect with you.
Where are you?
I'm in Cork, which is down in the south of kind of Ireland. I'm originally from Dublin, but I moved here about 30 years ago to take up a job at the local university.
Yeah, and you had a great career there.
I had a lovely career. My career was in media and PR. I was head of media and PR in University College Cork, and I loved it. Part of my job, particularly when social media came in, I could commission kind of music and poetry. And I loved that part of the job. And I regularly did that when we had like Prince Charles came to visit the university in 2017. I commissioned a harpist, a very talented harpist, graduate of the university, Dr. Fear-inducing, to write Planxty Prince Charles, which he duly did. And we made a lovely video, which we put out on social media. And then he actually played for the prince when he arrived. And the prince was presented with the lovely leather bound thing of the music, manuscript of the music written down. Now I knew myself that that music would go into a vault someplace that they don't keep them. So I got in touch then afterwards, about a month afterwards. I thought I'll get in touch with the prince's harpist. The prince has his own harpist, a Welsh. He always has a Welsh harpist. So I got in touch with the harpist of the time and kind of asked her if she'd got the music, and she hadn't, of course. So I sent her the music, and I loved the thought that maybe at a very formal official engagement that she would be there playing Planxty Prince Charles.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So you
Yeah,
love putting together music and social commentary in a way, social bringing together. And in fact, you had a wonderful event where you went to the British Embassy with your harp. Would you tell us a little
that's right.
about that?
Yeah. Well, I was very dismayed when I heard that the UK was going to leave the European Union. I suppose I can remember in the 70s when we all joined, Ireland and Britain joined at the same time. And I mean, the EU certainly was fantastic for Ireland, not just in terms of the economic support, but in terms of defining ourselves as kind of a nation, that we were no longer under sort of the UK so much, their influence, but that we were true Europeans. And I suppose the whole notion of the European Union, I really think it's great. Collaboration, interdependence, no more wars on European kind of territory. I really believe in that. I mean, I think it should be spread. It shouldn't be the European Union, it should be world union. So I knew that in Britain leaving, that it could set a bad precedent, not just for them leaving, but for other countries, maybe in Eastern Europe, that kind of weren't so strong in their democracy and were veering a bit to the right. And I also knew that Ireland, and I mean, the British didn't seem to consider this, but that Ireland would suffer enormously economically. We're quite tied into the British economy, even for, excuse me, getting our goods across to Europe. They'd go across Britain. So I was very dismayed, and I thought, well, rather than go on Twitter and whatever and Facebook, that I would sort of do my lone event, that I would go to the British Embassy in Dublin and sit there and play a piece. So I played the Parting of Companions, which is a kind of a 17th century, lovely Scarunt na Gambána, very plaintive air. And what was really interesting, I was doing it just to make a point, and because my background is in media, I'd let the media know, and the television and all the newspapers. So it's great media coverage. But where I really felt the sense of community that you talk so much about, was that at that on the weekend I was playing, I think on a Friday, and one of my friends in Dublin, he was celebrating his 60th birthday, and he's German. So he had people coming from all over Europe, and he'd spent some time in Berkeley, actually, at the university. His wife had been working in the chaplaincy there. So there were Americans, there were people from Berkeley as well, and they wanted to be part of it. And my original vision was me solo, kind of there, this lone woman, but it changed into something completely different. And my friend, one of my friends, she wrote a haiku and performed it on the occasion. And my German friend sang the parting. Oh no, he sang an Irish song anyway, whose name I just don't recall. And the Americans, they all were there and delighted to be there. And when we went to the party afterwards, it was kind of over a weekend. I was really touched that people were delighted. I mean, I'd felt, oh, I must do something, and I'd done it, but I had got cold feet at times, and I thought, oh, what am I doing? And am I mad to be, playing my harp outside the embassy? How crazy is it? But it sort of caught people's imagination, and I think at the party, there were people all over. There were Irish people living in the UK and everything who were there, and they were saying they were delighted that I had done something a bit sort of different, and that somebody had kind of, rather than just taking to anger on Twitter, that they had expressed themselves maybe in a more creative way. So I really got that sense of the power of community, and how one person in connecting with that and even doing it can kind of invigorate, I suppose, everybody, and give, I suppose, a bit of encouragement to others. So I was delighted. And I remember you two speaking to you, actually. We had a phone call about a week, I think, beforehand, and where I was dithering about the whole thing, and you encouraged me as well. And it was that kind of encouragement, because I've had one or two of these ideas in the past, and like that, I get an idea, I go so far, but I suppose, I get cold feet. I suppose that's a natural thing, and I need the support, actually. And I think most people do, to say, no, Ruth, go for it, do it. Yeah, it's a great idea, and to give me courage. So I was delighted, of course, in the end, that I did do it.
Such a great example of so many beautiful things. Yes, I definitely believe all of us need community. All of us need that kind of encouragement, because we do have little fears here and there that actually may hold us back,
Yeah,
when it's in fact a great cause. I love that you were leading the community from a positive place. You were
yeah,
leading it with art. And
yes,
the other part is, you really are such a marvelous example of art as cultural diplomacy. So there's a whole genre of diplomacy
yeah,
that uses art as the way to connect with other people, to communicate with other people, to collaborate with other people. And you're a shining example of that.
yes. And just to cap it all, then, what was interesting, um, I had got in touch with my counterpart, as it were, the PRO of the embassy, and had dealings with her when Prince Charles came. So she says, she invited me. She came out then and brought me out a cup of tea and some biscuits. She had invited me in, but seeing that there was quite a gang around, they weren't sort of being invited. I said I felt I should stay with them when they turned up. But she brought me out a lovely cup of tea and biscuits and stayed around. So there was all of that too. So it was, yeah, it was great.
Oh, wow. When we connect with people through our art, I think we connect through the heart. And that is a
Yeah,
direct connection and bypasses all the arguments about who's right, who's wrong, this, that, the other. And we get right back to true connection. And from
yeah,
there, I think we can work again. But if we get
yeah,
stuck in these kind of heady arguments of right and wrong, they could go on absolutely
yeah,
forever. And we've seen that happen with
yeah,
generation upon
yeah,
generation.
yeah. That's right.
So thank you for what you do. And
Okay.
the other part that I wanted to talk about was, you mentioned the haiku, and you
Yes,
told me something very interesting about you starting to compose now. Could you tell me a little
yes.
bit about that? Was it the same haiku?
No, it was a different. Um, well, what happened when I got to a certain stage in your course where we were looking at chords, I said, yes, let me try this out. And even though I've been playing the harp for 50 years, um, at the very start, when the first year or so, I used to doodle and create things on the harp. And then for some reason, I completely stopped until about a month ago. And I started to play around. And then it was a friend's birthday, one of the friends who had been at the British Embassy, and she's into it. She writes haiku. So I thought, for Maeve's birthday, I thought, surely I can manage 17 notes, because the haikus have 17 syllables, I think, in them. So I did, and I made a little video of it, and I sent it up to her, and she was very touched, kind of with the haiku. So what I found, just before that, I'd been playing around with the chords, and since then, I've done a few more pieces for Valentine's Day, and I'm now working on a slightly longer piece with my harp teacher in Ireland. So I write out the melody, and do some of the left hand, and she helps me a bit, and we review it. So I have a bit more work to do it, and I'm absolutely loving it. And I think what I've got from the bright knowledge and that is that you know, I don't worry, even though I know lots of professional musicians and things like that. I don't worry, is this good? Is it bad? That's not a consideration. This is an expression of something deep within me. And I'm intrigued at the process that, something comes out. I kind of think, I used to think of composition, that people would sit down with the manuscript and it would be very much a head thing. But what I'm finding is that it's much more a gut. And sometimes if I haven't practiced the harp, I might on my way nearly to bed say, I'll just go in for 10 minutes and kind of, when I say doodle, kind of just see what comes. And I find that's actually quite a fertile time, actually, that things do come. And I think it's partly maybe because I've no great expectation of anything. I'm just relaxed and at ease. And it's a lovely place to be in. I presume if you're a professional composer, there'll be more pressure. But for me, I'm finding this really exciting.
Oh, that's thrilling to hear. I truly believe we have the music inside us already.
Yeah.
It's all there. And it's just a question of letting it come out. And that's
Yes.
not always such an easy thing to know how to do. A lot of it does involve, as you say, sidestepping judgment, because the
Yeah.
judgment part, is this good? Is it bad? Those are kind of showstoppers, because
Yeah.
if we say, "Oh, it's bad," we usually then will walk away. But we could use
Yeah.
discernment. We could say instead, "Oh, this part isn't working. I wonder what would make it work." And I
Yeah.
know that that's how you approach things instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I mean, there's a craft to be learned. There's, I suppose, an expression of something within you, and then there's the craft kind of actually, there are things to be learned. So I suppose that's, the process that I'm going through, and I'm loving that. And what I'm finding very interesting is that a lot of the music that's coming out of me, it's kind of, pathos. I found I didn't want anything happy in the key of G or whatever. I was attracted instinctively to the Dorian mode,
Mhm.
and everything that's come out, like, it's quite, my husband says it's quite revealing, and even for myself. And I think actually what the music does, though, at a very deep level, it does allow me to maybe express something that doesn't otherwise get expressed. And if there is pathos and if it's sad, well, obviously it's a way of processing emotions. So, it's taken me, I was in a slightly different thing, I suppose. A lot of the music before be external focused, maybe playing a concert or doing this or that. Whereas now it's very, just at the point where I am now, it's very much internal, about maybe expressing, helping me get in touch with whatever in me that I'm even unaware of, and expressing that, and it may be resolving whatever that, if there's stuff there. So it's like a bit of therapy for myself, and I'm just loving it.
Yeah, and we become more ourselves when we integrate like that, when we integrate all those
Yeah.
parts of ourselves, see those parts of
Yeah.
ourselves. We're just more us, which is a great thing.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate how you are honoring your artistic style. You're noticing, "Oh, how curious that I am drawn towards these darker sounds, more melancholy,
Yeah.
more introspective, and that's what I'm gonna do. That is my
Yeah.
artistic voice. That's what comes out." And you really are honoring that.
Well, Diana, I'm almost, I won't say ashamed to say, it's only since I have kind of joined up with you that I have discovered that was one of the revelations of, the Bright Harp knowledge, is that, I've been playing pieces that other people like to hear. I always worked on the assumption, particularly coming maybe from Ireland. I've worked as a college student in Bunratty Castle, these medieval banquets. So I've done that. And I've always assumed that's what people want to hear. They probably do, but it has never been what I've been interested in. And it's only really now, at the very start of my career, my teacher used to have me learning very modern kind of contemporary music that I loved. It wasn't really at all traditional Irish music. But once I got to a certain stage, once really I left that, I found I was playing like for the castles, kind of, sort of Irish traditional music. So it's only when I got on to doing your course that I realized, it's that you say you should really play the music that you love. You should express that rather than what you think. And I realized that for many years, for most of the years gone by, I haven't been playing the music that I like. I've been playing music that I think people expect to hear, like Carolyn, that all fabulous music, but not really, not what interests me really, or excites me. So it's only in the last year or two that I've really said, no more, I'll only learn music that I really like. And now, sure, I'm now beginning to write some of my music, and I'm loving that sort of process too.
Yes, I am so excited to hear about your composition. That is just thrilling to me that you've started taking that on. And I loved what you said earlier before we started recording when you said, I've been looking for the music that I really love, really, really,
Yes.
really, really love. And I
Yeah.
realized that music is inside me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been looking for that sort of emotional connection, and that with my very simple notes, it's very simple what I've done, but that speaks to me in a way that most of the music out there, hasn't. So, I mean, there's lots of lovely music that I am learning, and that there's, from different people. But I love that sort of modal music, and I just love that with your own music too. All the Balkan kind of music they have. They're written in some sort of mode. I'm not quite sure what one, but like that, and also in Israeli and a lot of the Arab music, they have that, don't they? And that is very appealing. Just like a lot of Irish music, of course, is modal as well, and it has what I'd call the nya kind of, but it's kind of, the pathos, the melancholy, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, it's interesting listening to very early recordings of Irish fiddle from, uh,
Yeah,
I think the 20s and 30s even, and they were very deliberately using quarter tones for sure. Not
really.
even half step,
Yeah,
but quarter, deliberately going, and
yeah,
vocalists do that all the time. Uilleann
yeah,
pipes are hanging out
yeah,
in that zone constantly, and so
exactly.
yeah, things are not as cut and dried
Yeah,
as they're often presented to be. And I think
yeah,
ultimately why we want all these devices is we want to express the full complexity of our feelings. And so we try to find these ways to do it. And if that's quarter tones, if
yeah,
it's odd signatures, whatever it happens to be, we have to find that thing that does ring true to us. And it really
yeah,
sounds like you're getting ever, ever closer to that. Oh, that's me. That's my sound.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's so thrilling. I love
It
hearing.
is.
Yeah. And I love,
I have a way to go, but to have found that path, that had never struck me before, so I'm delighted. So, yeah.
oh, thrilling, thrilling. So, Ruth, I always love to ask a couple questions of my podcast guests. And one of those questions is, what is one myth that you find is prevalent about creativity in general? What is something that people tend to think about or to say about creativity, and you're kind of like, I don't think that's really true?
Well, I suppose the way people maybe define that you're creative or you're not, you're either an accountant or a musician. And I don't think that's so. I think everybody has creativity within them. And it's a questioning, I suppose, of listening and finding it. Like this friend who writes the haiku, she's an academic, and sort of, she'd love to be into music, but she's not. But she's very good at cooking. She's a great cook. So her creativity comes with her cooking. So there are so many different, just like there are multiple intelligences, there are so many different ways of being creative. And as I say, even doing the most um, simple things, whatever, even around the place, I suppose it's partly with intention, and deep listening, as you'd say. But it's an approach, I suppose, to the matter on hand in some ways, whatever it is. I think that's creativity. So I don't think there isn't, even though the general population go, if you're an actor or an artist or whatever, you're creative, but there's scope there for everybody to be creative.
I love what you're saying. You actually answered my second question. My second question is, if there was one thing that you want people to know about creativity right now, what would it be? And I think it's very similar to what you just said.
Yes, well, that everybody is creative within them, and it's just finding the best method of expression for them, whatever that might be. For some, it'll be the harp or music, cooking, whatever it could be, cleaning the windows, whatever, doing it in a
With
whatever, so making curtains, whatever, there's multiple ways. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. And you really stoke your flame several ways. One way is your social activism, really your artistic
yeah,
activism, where you're
yeah,
connecting your art to real life right now and real things
yeah,
happening, important
yeah,
things happening, and having a community around that, inspiring a
yeah,
community around that, being inspired by a community around that. And the other part is really tapping deeper and deeper into your artistic voice and noticing
yeah,
what is it that I love and going for that, playing in
yeah,
those modes without
yeah.
judging, who's the audience going to be, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It's that
No, no.
confidence of following through on your artistic voice.
And that's what I'm doing now, and it's great, and it's completely sort of, when I say an internal process, I don't care. I don't necessarily plan to perform it anywhere. I may or may not, but that's not what I'm about. It is just the pure creativity, finding that voice, and that's wonderful too. And I think you had that in some ways in a discussion in your concert yesterday.
You
You
remind,
know,
yeah,
yes,
exactly.
and there are times, I suppose, to be externally focused, but there are times when you just batten down the hatches, as it were, and go inwards and kind of, as you say, trawl that space, whatever. And however, maybe, you know, I'm a newbie at this, and I like that I'm being kind to myself. I'm saying, let's see where this takes. Let's learn more about doing it. And in fact, I remember ages ago, I think I'd come across in the trainings about, analyzing music, and I thought, well, I have all of this. One of the great ways to kind of bring myself up to speed, as it were, without having to sit down and look at theory things, is to actually do as you suggested, and to get out pieces of music I have and see what have they done, what chords have they used, how have they gone from one, how have they developed a melody line, all of that sort of stuff. It's all there, all I have to do. And I'm kind of excited about that, to kind of sit down and, pick up a few trips and just see kind of what people do, so that's where I am at now, exactly.
Oh, so fun. I learned so
Yeah.
much from studying scores of other composers
Yeah. Yeah.
and picking and
And
choosing what I like out of it and making it.
yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, well, so much to look forward to in the future, so much that you're doing
Yeah.
right now that's absolutely amazing. It's
Mm.
really inspiring to talk with you, Ruth.
Yeah. Thank you, Diana. And as I say, and thank you for the wonderful trainings, because as I say, after all these years in playing the harp, it's just, it set me in a completely different path, and it's much more satisfying as a musician. Um, you know, and I would pick and choose whatever public performances or whatever. But I have in Ireland now, they have a national famine day, as you know, the famine in the 1840s, the population was halved. Many arrived in the States. And of course, Joe Biden is descended from Irish ancestry. But we have a National Famine Day in May. And I'm thinking, not this May, because with COVID, everything's shut down, but that I might do something for the following year. My father lived on a farm down in Dingle, a lovely part of the southwest of Ireland, and he lived in, his parents bought the agent of the Lord Ventry. You had a landlord, a big landlord, who would be in England a lot of the time. So he'd leave his estate in the hands of his agent. And there in the 1980s, so my grandparents bought it in 1920. The agent fled off to England when Ireland became independent. But anyway, this is a long way of saying that in the 1980s, when my uncle and my cousin were doing some work around the farm, they found all these cockle shells underneath the paving. and they were wondering, what is that? And they're about a quarter of a mile from the sea. And then they later found a huge big cauldron, like kind of, Lady Macbeth, that kind of, witch's cauldron. And they realized, of course, it was going back to famine times when people were starving, whatever, that they used to cook up fish, shell, kind of from shells, shellfish in this big cauldron to feed the locals. So I thought maybe I might go down to my uncle's farm where my dad grew up, my late father, and that go down and either with my own composition or something else, maybe play and connect with my cousin and just get in touch with all of that.
Oh my goodness. All your stuff coming together, your creativity,
Yeah,
your community, your activism, awareness.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
thank you. Oh, beautiful to hear. Well, thank you for spending this time with me, Ruth. Thank you for staying up so late. You're 8 hours
Yes,
ahead of me, and it's afternoon
my
here.
pleasure. My
Oh,
pleasure.
thank you.
Thank you indeed.
Well, I can't wait to just hear all of your stuff all over again, and then all the new stuff as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Ruth. Bye for
Bye.